Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Power Hour panel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Power Hour panel, where we get together and we discuss current events that are happening across the globe and right here in this great nation as well. There's a lot going on right now between threats of war, protests happening around the country, around the globe, airlines merging. There's a lot going on, and we're going to be discussing it today. But first, let's start off with something that's happening right here in the United States. Now, we have seen over the past year that Republicans really have sided with not necessarily pushing for a January 6th insurrection House committee to do things. And I know I say that weird, but essentially, many Republicans have not necessarily been too thrilled with the investigation going on around January 6th, around the insurrection. And for the most part, Republican politicians have aligned and they have had the same rhetoric when talking about the incidents. Now, as we saw, Liz Cheney has been one of the few Republicans who have spoken up against what happened on January 6th, and one of the few Republicans that are actually part of the committee and really looking in to seeing what happened on January 6th. Now, because of this, Cheney and Kissinger, who is also a Republican who has been looking into it, was formally censored by the RNC. Now, many Republicans did celebrate. They said that they did deserve to be censored. However, Mitch McConnell has stepped out of line, according to the Republican Party, and he's essentially saying that they should not have formally censored Liz Cheney and Kissinger. And he came out and he essentially said, and this is directly from McConnell, this is what McConnell said: it was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. So, Wade, what do you think about that? What do you think about Mitch McConnell basically stepping away from what the rhetoric of the Republican Party has been?
Wasn't Mitch McConnell the one who shit himself up there on stage?
I'm not going to go into that, but...
And there's a valid reason I ask. I mean, if he was the one who shit his pants during that press conference and had to waddle off the stage, I don't know how much stock I put into what he's saying.
So I'll say this: Mitch McConnell has been at the forefront of the Republican Party for decades. He's one of the leaders of the Republican Party. However, it looks as though he's siding with Kissinger and Cheney at the moment. And he has been someone who has gone against Trump during Trump's presidency. So do you think that McConnell did the right thing by coming out and saying that it was a violent insurrection and essentially calling it what it was and breaking away from the RNC?
I think in this case, the political parties, we can't, but in this example, let's ignore the political parties, all right? If you just look at it as a person saying this was an insurrection, I think that has a whole lot more power. I think everybody's too focused on, oh, you belong to this person, you should agree with them, or you belong to this person, you should agree with them. We've lost the ability to be independent thinkers, speakers, and stand on our own 2 feet. So, because everybody wants to associate everybody with everything. Like I said, you're a Republican, you should believe this. But that's not the case. So good for him for saying what he wanted to say, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Okay. Now, Liz Cheney and Kissinger, they were both censored. Now, basically what a censor is, it's a formal or public or group condemnation. So basically, the RNC formally condemned Liz Cheney and Kissinger for their roles in trying to find out what's going on with January 6th. Now, they came out during the censor, they came out and said several key things. They said that Liz Cheney and Kissinger were participating in the Democratic-led persecution of ordinary citizens engaged in legitimate political discourse. So essentially, the RNC, their views of what happened on January 6th is that this was a legitimate political discourse. Now, during this evening, we're going to talk a lot about protests, because we have the protests in Brooklyn, we have the protests going on in Canada, and then with what the RNC says, they're talking about this being a legitimate political discourse. It looks like the RNC is saying that this was a big protest. But again, like me, many people see it as an insurrection, treason. So if I'm going with that, do you think that so do you think that Liz Cheney and Kissinger should have been censored? Wade?
I don't know.
So basically, the Republican Party came out and basically condemned it, like basically said that what they're doing is wrong and they did it formally. Is this something that should have happened? Should the RNC have done this? Now, again, they're calling what happened on January 6th legitimate political discourse. But Mitch McConnell is breaking with party lines. And I know you're very big about it shouldn't be about party lines, but we do know that we live in a time where everything is party lines. So do you think they should have been censored?
Help me understand for a minute.
So it's really not going to affect them, their career, right? It's not going to affect what's happening with them politically. It's not going to stop them from being Republicans and et cetera. Basically, it's a formal slap on the wrist.
Then what does it matter anyway?
It does matter. It does matter in the party because essentially you have to work with your colleagues. When you bring forth legislation to the table, you have to have your colleagues with you in order to back you up. So it's basically drawing lines in the sand. I'm going to let you think about that. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the comments.
Yeah, let me think about that.
So Philip says, finally, Mitch is growing some you-know-whats. Philip also says, yes, he did. The truth has to come out. And again, as we all know, I very much support what Liz Cheney is doing, Kissinger as well. I do think that they're doing the right thing, that January 6th does need to be investigated. It needs to be investigated thoroughly. I don't think they're going after some witch hunt like a lot of Republicans are saying. I believe they're doing the right thing by looking into it with the House committees and with the various other agencies that are looking into what happened on January 6th. Surprisingly, I agree with Mitch as well. You will not see this happen a lot. Me formally coming on air and saying I agree with Mitch McConnell, but I think Mitch McConnell was right in saying that they should not have censored the two Republicans. And I completely agree with Mitch McConnell when he says that it was a violent insurrection. It did go against what normally happens in an election. You can investigate. You can look to see if something happened during an election. You have that right. I believe everyone has the right to protest. But what happened on January 6th was something that went much, much further than a protest. I know we use the word insurrection. I believe it's treason. We're not going to get to that debate tonight, Wade, because we debate it constantly. But I do think it's something that's important.
I think for them to answer your question, I think for them to take an action that's more of a we took an action than actually having some meat behind it, I think it's childish. Anybody should be able to say anything, regardless of what party you're aligned with. You should be able to state what your opinion is, even if it differs from your party or other parties. So I see this, honestly, from the outside as you didn't agree with me, so I'm going to slap you. And it has no other, it's playground rules.
And let's go to the comments. So Philip says, hell no, Liz took a stand and she doesn't care. Republicans doesn't like it. Lindsay says, McConnell is, and I cannot see the rest of that comment. So Lindsay says, McConnell is fed up with the BS. And it's almost refreshing to see him call a spade a spade. I'll agree with that. It is refreshing to see McConnell step up and do this. So we'll see what comes of this. We do know that many conservatives, many Republicans are still along the lines of not necessarily investigating the January 6th insurrection the way that many Democrats want to go ahead and explore what happened. We're still looking at people facing subpoenas. We still have a long way to go. It's been over a year now. So there's still a long way to go, but I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the Republican Party and the January 6th committee. Joanna says he's doing damage control. He's looking out for his political career. He is a manipulator. He sees the direction it's taking. So I'm going to agree with this 100%. I think we're entering into a new political sphere where politics is going to be played very differently. And we're seeing that the parties are starting to splinter as well with both parties. It's coming where even with the Democratic Party, you have moderates, you have progressives. In the Conservative Party, you have the far right, and then you have the Liz Cheneys of Republicans. And I think Mitch McConnell 100% wants to separate himself from the Trumpisms, from the era of Trump. He is a Republican through and through. He believes in Republican values through and through. He is a conservative, but I don't think that he adheres to the values that Trump does and that many of Trump's followers adhere to as well. So I think he is trying to draw a line in the sand to, one, save his political career going forward, but maybe also preserve his legacy as well. Lindsay says he's not a big Trump fan at all from what I gathered. He's not. So he's one of the few Republicans that did go against Trump while Trump was in office. When he didn't agree with something, he didn't agree with it unless he needed votes at the time.
See, and I think that goes to the core of our biggest problem here. We have a political system that is based off of playground rules.
Mm-hmm.
And while I understand there's parties and there's party lines, I don't understand them, but I understand that they exist.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we originally design our Congress when it was first designed to have these people be the representatives of the people and the people's wishes, not the party's wishes? So
in theory.
So allowing them to speak their mind or what they believe or what their constituents are telling them to say is the core value of our Congress, not we either all get together or you got to go stand in the corner. So I have trouble reconciling that we have people that are upset that people are not following what they want, so they're giving them a slap.
It's just the way that politics is at the moment. And then let's go to the comments from Smoke and Bacon. So Smoke and Bacon is another app that we do broadcast to. However, the comments will not show up from Smoke and Bacon. So Las Vegas Luddite says that's most likely because there's people in prison without having seen their day in court, and McConnell's best days are behind him. And then another comment from the Smoke and Bacon app says, no, I disagree with Cheney and Kissinger. They have the right and maybe even the responsibility to voice their opinion. And then let's go to one more. So Joanna says, exactly, thumbs up, Wade.
Woohoo, I got a point.
We don't do the points anymore.
I know, because I kept getting my butt kicked, but I'm still excited I got a point.
Excellent. So Wade got a point tonight. But let's go ahead and move on from topics. So giving an update about what's happening with the Freedom Convoy. Now, this is going to be a topic that we're going to be talking about for a very long time because the movement is growing. So we know now that in Canada in Ottawa specifically, has declared a state of emergency, which does give the police in Ottawa the ability to handle this with a little bit more aggression. Now, it looks as though the government at the moment is trying to keep it from becoming violent. So they're keeping the military out of it. They have requested more police. So the mayor, Jim Watson, has requested more police to come into the city to deal with the situation. However, they are facing difficulties with that as well. So they have more police coming in. They're trying to deal with it non-violently. They're doing this by seizing vehicles, by seizing fuel, by cutting them off from food, by essentially cutting them off from supplies as well. And we saw with GoFundMe that for a while they were cut off from funds also. However, while the city's trying to deal with this in a way where they could just seize things and try and get the protesters to disperse, there is some issues going on because many of the tow truck drivers who have tow trucks that could tow 18-wheelers that can tow trucks, they're saying that they're not going to come out and do that. So now Canada is now facing another issue that none of the tow truck companies that they have contracts with want to come out and tow these trucks. So Wade, what is your thoughts about what's going on with the Freedom Convoy, specifically with the Ottawa police now taking a more aggressive approach, and then also with Canada trying to cut them off?
So I'm torn on this entire thing because we had this conversation a few episodes ago where we talked about what rights do Canadians have. Mm-hmm. And when you do the research, their Bill of Rights, it's called something else. I forget what it is. It's a different term, but it's essentially their Bill of Rights. They align pretty much with ours. There's a few differences, but nothing abnormal. And in there, it says that people have a right to protest. So, at a protest, just for clarification, the definition of a protest is a statement or action expressing disapproval or objection to something. Also, as an organized public demonstration expressing strong objection to an official policy or course of action. Mm-hmm. So that's the definition of a protest. So these truckers are protesting. The only thing that makes it illegal right now is that they don't have a permit. Nowhere in anything I read in any Bill of Rights, including our own, states you have to have a permit to make your protest legal. So I have trouble saying, okay, the truckers aren't moving goods. That's affecting the citizens of Ottawa, Canada, things like that. But that is the entire point of the protest. The entire point is that they can shut down the nation. I don't know if you call Ottawa a nation or a sub-country, or I don't know what you call it. But they can shut it down.
It's a province, yeah.
Yeah, it's a province. That's it. So they can shut it down. They have made their point. It's time to start talking at the table. Not trying to use war tactics to peacefully end a protest. And what I mean by war tactics is we've pretty much made these truckers North Korea. You're not allowed to get fuel. We're going to take your money. We're going to take your vehicles. We're going to do all these things. We've put them on this island to force them to leave. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that that is legal or right.
I'm going to disagree with you. It is legal. It is right. Number one, they did declare a state of emergency. They're able to do this because they declared a state of an emergency. Now, I think it was last week when we were really talking about how this is growing bigger than a protest. I wouldn't necessarily call it a protest anymore. It's definitely an occupation. If we go back to Occupy Wall Street, is very similar where people are sitting outside, but with Occupy Wall Street, people were still able to get in and out of buildings. They were still able to do things. They have completely shut down the downtown Ottawa, and Canada does need to do something. They can't allow the city downtown to be completely blocked off by protesters. That is something that's important. Ottawa still needs to function. Now, they allowed the truckers to protest. They didn't like it, but they allowed the truckers to protest. When the truckers first arrived in Ottawa, they were very Canadian and asked them to leave. It took 9 days for Canada to finally say, hey, we're going in a state of emergency, which literally means they allowed the truckers to come out there and not bother them for 9 days. Things started getting rowdy. And then we saw the arrival of hate paraphernalia, of neo-Nazi paraphernalia, of signs with the SS symbol, with swastikas being drawn onto the Canadian flag, and then signs just with swastikas and swastika flags. They allowed them to be there for 9 days before really taking any real action. So at no point did they take away their right to protest. But now it's becoming a bigger thing than just a protest. They're occupying and taking over downtown Ottawa. They essentially have taken over the downtown area. They're not allowing business to function. They're not allowing people to come in and out. They have shut it down. And I think at that point, Canada really does need to step in. Trudeau needs to step in. Mayor Watson needs to step in, and they need to do something. Now, if you look at the logistics, they've been talking. Essentially, the protesters, they said they're not leaving until
the mandates are lifted.
Exactly, they're not leaving until the mandates are lifted, and Canada's not going to change that. They've been very adamant that they're not going to lift the mandates, because initially the mandates that they were protesting were the mandates for truckers at the border, which again essentially stated that you either needed to be vaccinated once you come into Canada, or if you're not vaccinated, you can still come in. You just have to quarantine and then have a negative test. So they didn't even stop the truckers from coming in. They said you have to quarantine and you have to take a negative test. Now, the truckers that are occupying Ottawa at the moment, they have switched their tune. They switched their tune from pretty much the beginning, and they're now saying they're not only protesting the border mandate, but they're protesting all COVID-related mandates. Now, again, I want to be very specific. They're not saying vaccine mandates. They're saying all COVID mandates, including mask mandates. They're not going to leave until life goes back to normal. And Canada's not going to allow that, because Canada has stated time and time again that they're going to follow the science and they're going to keep the mandates in place until we're able to completely get out of this global pandemic. And I do respect Canada for that. Now, the tactic that they're using to essentially smoke them out, to get them to leave by cutting off their supplies, I do think that's a smart tactic, because they're not trying to see it get violent. And once you get in a situation where maybe you call in the military, it's going to turn to violence and bloodshed. So again, they're tiptoeing around it. Again, they're still being very Canadian about being polite about it. But now they're saying, we allowed you to protest for 9 days. We're into day 12 now. It's time for you guys to leave. So we're going to cut off your supply, so there's no way that you can continue protesting. So I do think Canada's taking the right steps.
I think that they're taking the wrong steps in this fact. Yes, how many times have we been seeing a protest and a negotiation, whether it be between a labor union or a sit-in or something else, where we're not leaving until we get X, or we're not coming back to work until we get X? And there's always a negotiation that happens. There's always the period of time that the owners or somebody else says, we're not giving in. Fuck you. We're not doing it. That's that 9-day period. When you have the amount of truckers in your city that shuts your city down, when you have close to $10 million donated to that cause, and you can't find tow trucks to remove the trucks out of the city because they agree with the truckers, it might be time to bring a folding table out, put it in the middle of the city, and say, let's talk. Let's see what we can do. We may not be able to help you. You may not be able to do anything for us, but at least let's try. Let's talk. Right now, we're on two separate sides of the walls, and we're telling each other, fuck you. That's what we're doing. And the more that Trudeau starts cutting off these lines, it is extremely cold in Ottawa. The first person that gets hypothermia, the first person that dies because they don't have heat or fuel or food. Because let's be honest, those truckers are stubborn. They're not going to leave because they're hungry or they don't have fuel. The first person that happens to, that's going to be even worse than having a conversation.
So I'm trying to pull up to see if they've actually had an actual conversation before I get here. So I can't see if they've actually had the conversation. I have to look. I would have to dig a little bit deeper.
Right. And we don't know.
I don't think it's going to work. I
but
think
if they try.
And I'm going to tell you right now, and that's what I'm saying. I can't say whether they tried or not because I didn't do the research into that. However, I don't think it's going to work. And here's why I don't think it's going to work. Because it's growing into something big. This is no longer a protest. You can continue calling it a protest if you want to, but this is no longer a protest. Even across the border, you have Republican politicians who are now supporting what's happening. And again, they're doing it for their own political gain as well. So when the convoy does happen in the United States, they can say that we've been with you and this and that, and we support
it's for votes.
It's for votes. But they have the media's attention. This has been on the news cycle for the past 12 days nonstop. We're in a situation where they have the political backing from people overseas. When I say overseas, I mean across the border for the United States. Just used to saying overseas.
And I can make it even simpler than that. They have the world view right now.
They do. They're not going anywhere. And they're not going to leave until, and I think this is until they get exactly what they want. I don't think they're open to negotiations.
I don't think that's 100% true. I think if they have negotiations and you have a win-win scenario, they will leave.
What would a win-win scenario look like?
I don't know what a win-win scenario would look like, what it would look like, but I can tell you if I was the mayor or I was the president, and using your terms, if I had a city occupied by a force, I would be in conversations with them to figure out what we can do together to solve the problem. I would not be stonewalling them. Does that mean I have to give up a little something and they got to give up a little something? Maybe. Does it mean we don't have an end result? Maybe. But if there's even a chance, that conversation needs to be held. If they are a truly free society, a free country, then they should be able to have this conversation at this point. This is not 5 people sitting on a street corner chained to a pole screaming. This is an extreme amount of people, an extreme amount of money, an extreme amount of publicity. And putting all that aside, let's just say you say, okay, well, you know what? I understand that this is going to affect A, B, and C. And you can see how this is affecting A, B, and C. We both see how we're not moving forward. All right. I can't say that I'm going to give up all the COVID mandates. That's just not going to happen. All right. But let's say instead of quarantining for 2 weeks, we follow the CDC since you've been in your truck by yourself for X time, and you quarantine for 5 days. Can we start there? What do you guys think?
They wouldn't follow the CDC. CDC's America.
I'm just saying in this example.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, there's things that you can do. There's conversations that you can have. But they're not even doing that. Right now, they're trying to cut their lifelines off. And if you think that's going to win people over, you are sorely mistaken.
So I'm going to agree and disagree with you tonight. I think the conversation is going to happen. While you were talking, I was really trying to pull up to see. This is something that I would have to dig a little bit deeper and actually talk to sources to see if they're planning to talk. But it's looking like they haven't spoken yet. I think a little bit of both would be the appropriate thing. I do think you need to cut them off. I do think you need to cut off their supplies to get them to leave the city. Right now, there's around 500 trucks. Ottawa is just completely, utterly shut down. It's just shut down. And Ottawa needs to get back to business. I also think there needs to be...
As long as emergency vehicles can get through, I think it's perfectly fine.
I disagree with you 100%. And again, if it was a day, because let's talk about when Black Lives Matter shut down the freeway. I was fine with that. It wasn't for an extended amount of time. They shut down the exits for a little bit of time, and then they moved on.
But they didn't let emergency vehicles through. That's the problem. Well, 100%. Not all of them, but a good portion of them did not. So there were many times.
There were many times. There were many times where Black Lives Matter did go on the freeway. There were times when I think it was one incident.
Well, there were many times that it stopped, but I know of a few incidences where they said, hey, guys, we need to get the hell out of the way. There's an emergency vehicle coming through. After they're gone, we'll go back.
And that's what I'm saying.
Have no issue with that.
I think there was one incident where people didn't let it. Because remember, this was something that's happening across cities. And the same people who are supporting what's happening in Ottawa didn't support Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm not saying that you have to agree with the way that they're protesting, but it is frustrating to watch when one organization, which you do not support, does something very similar, and then another organization that you do support does the same thing, how you're okay with one and not the other. So
I can agree with that, how that's frustrating, yeah.
So I think that's frustrating.
I
so
don't see
again,
this the same.
If the Freedom Convoy, again, I don't support what they're protesting. I don't. I support their right to protest. If the Freedom Convoy would have moved across and not occupied areas, I would have been okay with it. It would have been frustrating. It may have taken a couple of days for all the trucks to come through, but they're now occupying space and they're shutting a city down.
Okay, so that's the conversation Trudeau needs to have. He says, hey, look, guys, you're killing this city. We know you are. You know you are. So here's what I'd like to propose. I'll let you sit here for the rest of the year. I don't care, but I'd like to open streets X, Y, Z, and I'm going to give you A, B, C to move your trucks to. Can we do that for right now so we can get this city back open and get supplies moving?
So
that could be a solution.
Possibly could be a solution. I don't think that's going to work because, and again, putting this out, I don't think it's going to work if they didn't have the support of politicians from across the border. I think that support of having the conservative politicians of being in the news cycle for so long, they're not going to back up now. That's like, and again, let's use a very, very simple.
And I'm not even asking them to back off in this conversation. I wouldn't be.
Let's use a very simple example. I don't think they're going to make any concessions. I'm going to use a very simple example. It's like a high school kid who doesn't want to fight, but all of a sudden the entire soccer team that they're on is backing them up. And they're going and they're pushing them. That kid's probably going to see the fight through the end. Even though
he's going to fight. Yeah. He knows he's going to get his ass whooped, but he's going to fight.
So I think that's where we're at now. I think because of the support that they're receiving, they're not going to back down. I think we're at a point where the only way they're going to move, it's not going to be through negotiations. It's going to be through force. I think that's where we're at the moment.
And I think that is so much worse.
But I think that's the only way they're going to move. But let's go ahead and go to...
Even with the best of intentions, that narrative will get spun.
Yeah.
That they brought the military in to forcefully remove these people and this happened, that happened. Even with the best of intentions, a country's military is not designed to police its own people. Even though it happens, it's not designed for that because they're trained to kill. They're not trained to be polite.
So let's go ahead and go to the comments. It happens all the time in the United States. Like I told you, when I was covering the protest live in DC and I was pepper sprayed and everything like that, National Guard was there. And again, we're talking about America, but every time Black Lives Matter comes out, as peaceful as it can be, military is always there. But let's go ahead and go to the comments. So Philip says, sometimes people may not like what you're doing at first. When they see that you stand your ground and speak the truth, people will respect you and follow you. Lindsay says, so they blocked an entire bridge into Detroit today. I'm surprised the bridge can withstand all the weight and sitting there for a long time. I agree. Lindsay also says, the failure lies with the local officials failing to ensure pathways and access to emergency service. That's an operational failure on the city/government. So to be prepared for the possibility of a protest of any kind or size. Joanna says, 100% agree with Wade. I think by blocking fuel and food, it's just going to make things worse. I'm sure it could have been handled a different way. Lindsay says, Canadian localities fail spectacularly with any form of preparations or logistics. They should have planned for hypothetical scenarios of massive scales when they put mandates out there. Also, because this happened when and as quickly as it did, they had to have known this was coming. Still felt prepared accordingly. Amanda says, agreed, Mel. Thank you, Amanda. Joanna says it's going to get worse as Freedom Convoy is spreading. It is. We're going to talk about that in a second. Lindsay says that's the problem with emergency services can't get through. So Lindsay's saying that in Ottawa, emergency services cannot get through. I believe that's what she's saying. Joanna says, yes, talk, negotiate. I believe it would make a difference, but they choose to poke. Not good. And then we're going to go over to the comments from Smoke and Bacon. Again, Smoke and Bacon is another app that we broadcast to. However, their comments do not show up.
That's because we keep getting banned by Facebook, fuckers.
So Las Vegas Guy says, what do we know about the actual people who brought the hate flags? They're just part of the protest. That's all we really know. They're just part of the protest. Again, they're Nazis, they're neo-Nazis, and they also don't support vaccines as mandates. That's what we really know. Las Vegas Letter cites the definition of a win-win is likely to change every 18 hours or so, depending on just who is at the helm on the truckers' side. I agree with that as well. Now, talking about this protest, it is growing. We do know that there was a Freedom Convoy that was being planned. It's still being planned from California to DC. However, Facebook did take that page down. So they're going to have to find other places. And there's a plethora of places where they can plan. We do know like every other day there's a conservative social media page popping up. So they'll have plenty of places to plan it. And then talking about GoFundMe as well. I know we spoke a little bit about GoFundMe last week, I believe. But with GoFundMe deciding that they're not going to disperse the funds to the truckers, they have now found other ways. And now there is a Christian group that they are using. They're using, and I'm grabbing this name for you, but it is a Christian organization that does fundraising for Christian groups, which again, this is not a Christian group, but it's called Give, Send, and Go. And as of today, as of Tuesday, they have raised $6.3 million on Give, Send, Go to send to the truckers. Now, while they've raised all this money, there was some issues with the Give, Send, Go platform. With the Give, Send, Go platform, there was a security breach and people's passport photos and licenses were leaked out. However, they did patch that security threat, and now they have secured everything. But wait, what are your thoughts about GoFundMe essentially giving the refunds and then Give, Send, Go stepping up and raising money, allowing them to raise money on the platform?
So I got 3 points to this. The first one is that while GoFundMe is a private company and can do whatever they want, it is a slippery slope when they state that they don't agree with something and seize the money and say, we're going to redistribute it to people we agree with. That is a slippery slope. Now, would I have a problem with GoFundMe saying, we don't agree with this, so we're going to end this funding and we're going to refund everybody, and, we're real sorry about that, no big deal? No, I don't have an issue with that. Would I have a problem with GoFundMe saying, guys, this is an awful lot of money that you guys are raising. We don't quite agree with you, but we know you're raising this significant amount. Let us help you find someone to help you manage it so it doesn't, just go to shit in a handbag out there. I have no issues with that. I have an issue with them seizing it and saying, we're going to redistribute it to charities that we agree with. I have a problem with that. But again, it's their platform. They can do whatever they want. So
I did have an issue, but they did change their stance on that rather quickly because of the pushback. I did have an issue with them redistributing the funds. Even if they were going to redistribute it to the funds to organizations that values aligned, I saw an issue with it. So I think with them giving the refund, they did the best thing they could do. I also think they're protecting themselves from liability. You have sites like Give, Send, Go. If something goes wrong with the money that was given to them, Give, Send, Go is really not going to see any backlash. However, GoFundMe is going to see a huge backlash. Let's say that.
And I'm okay with any of that. I'm okay with their liability. I'm okay with them saying we don't want to do this. I'm okay with all that. The only issue I have is that when they seize it and want to redistribute it to charities that they want to give it to, I have a problem with.
And then we are past that because they did see the wrong in their ways and they changed it. But I do think that as money is starting to be distributed to the organizers, that companies do need to be wary as well, because I can see this going violent. It's growing rapidly. There's no clear leadership, but it is growing rather rapidly. And because of the presence of neo-Nazis and other hate organizations, it could take a turn for the worse. Where
totally agree. And we're not talking about $1,000 or $100. We're talking about $10 million.
We're talking about millions. So let's say that they
kill over $1,000.
Let's say they give the money to the organizers, and then all of a sudden, the next day you hear of violence happening or a bomb going off or someone being attacked. whatever company is allowing the money to flow to
or
them.
the organizer is sitting in Aruba.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
knew
I
you were
said,
going to throw that in there.
I don't have an issue with them saying we don't want to do this. I'm okay with that. But you don't seize it and redistribute it. Granted, they gave it back to everybody. You just don't make that move. The other issue that I have is, okay, so we have this Christian group, Go Fund Go, or whatever the name is, that conveniently had a security breach releasing all the donators' information. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm a realist. Convenient that this happened when everybody moved over there. I'm just saying.
So I'm gonna say this. They are a Christian organization that raises money. Like it's the same. It's GoFundMe, but for your church group. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, your church group wants to go on a mission. Let's raise money for this.
How long have
I
they been
don't
around?
think they don't have the same security that GoFundMe has. That's not what they were doing. This is they weren't prepared.
Oh, you froze, and it's a great face.
Did I freeze?
Oh, you froze like a...
Am I still frozen?
No, you're good.
Okay. So they're not going to have the same security as a company like GoFundMe has. It's a small company. It's totally for raising money for, they just don't have,
totally
they don't have.
How long have they been around now?
I am not sure how long they've been around.
Let's say they've been around a year. They've only done one other fund. Let's just say, just for that, for a baseline, that security.
Oh, no, they've been around longer than a year.
I'm just saying.
They've been around for a while.
They've been around a year and only done one other fundraiser. That security breach was still there. Look at, she's frozen.
They're not used to helping organizations like this. Let's go ahead and run to the comments.
And then I got a third one for you too after your comments.
Okay. Lindsay says, I read an article from the BBC that they're reporting concerns of factions funding drivers get paid while sitting in Ottawa. Interesting. Joanna says, thanks for sharing. I never heard of that Christian GoFund. I'm always learning something new on Power Hour. Lindsay says, Mel, oh my God, Mel's face when you said you're not a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. Amanda says, LOL, she really wasn't believing it. Lindsay says, I know, right? And Joanna is laughing. And then going to the smoke and bacon comments. So let's see. So Las Vegas Light says, I saw footage today of the Canadian police twisting the arm of some old geezer who kept honking his horn. So they're really trying to get the horn honking to stop. So I 100% believe that. That is definitely something that's on right now. So let's see. Las Vegas Light says, Jack was looking pretty skittish today. Like he's got his finger on the trigger. Las Vegas says, what do we know about actual people who brought the hate flags? They brought it in. A lot of it is also like handwritten signs. So there's like handwritten signs where they'll write something. And instead of having normal S's, like two S's, they'll write the SS, like the SS symbols, the like SS bolts. People are also drawing swastikas on their Canadian flag. So they're being shown with like flags with the swastika on it. And then some people actually do just have swastika flags.
Look. Do you think I'm a neo-Nazi, Mel? Let me ask you a question. Do you think I'm a neo-Nazi?
Hold on, I'm looking at your bald head now. I really have to think about why you're bald. No, I don't
remember, you're talking to the guy who got a cease and desist from Facebook for putting Mark Zuckerberg's face on Adolf Hitler's body because I thought it was funny and sent it to them.
Wait, we're not trying to get kicked off. We're not trying to get kicked off Facebook right now.
Okay, so I'm just saying there's things that you got to understand about what's going on. I'm not saying there weren't neo-Nazis there, but some people could just be making that same sort of Canada's being some Nazis right now comparison. I'm not saying it's right. I don't agree with Nazis, but Zuckerberg's head on Adolf Hitler's body being sent every day by mail to the Facebook headquarters was funny as fuck.
So I'm going to say this. I completely disagree. You made a meme. You made a meme. These were not memes. And while it was a rather distasteful meme that you made.
Funny as hell, though. I even gave him the little mustache.
What's happening with the so I can't. So I can't show the images. I can inbox anyone who wants them. I have them. I'll find them again.
Why can't you show them?
But because they're copyright protected, you got to pay like a couple $100 from the photographers. Like there was one photographer who was there. I think Justin Tang. I think that's that photographer, the photojournalist. To use a lot of these
website, you can share the screen. That's fair. That's called public use.
But I will pull them. I will pull them up and I'll send them to you. There is three. There are three that really that were shown where you see that it's not a meme. But yeah, writing so that if you want to pull them up, Wade. Did you pull them up?
No, I have something else pulled up for our next conversation.
Anyway, so you made me lose track of everything. So Las Vegas says who actually are these people? They're protesters. They are people in the protest. They are people inside the protest who have Nazi symbols. They're people in the protest. The same way when they take pictures for the March for Life protest that happens every year in January in DC against abortion. Photojournalists come in and take pictures. You don't know who these people are, but they're there in the protest. So it's kind of hard to answer your question, Las Vegas Luddite. I can't tell you what their names are because we don't know. These are photojournalists coming in and taking pictures of people at the protest. So we haven't identified exactly who has the Nazi flags by name, but we do have the images. And then Wade, do you want to go with your third point before I go to the rest of the comments?
All right. So I'm going to get another cease and desist from that cheap ass Fox Entertainment because they're not really a news source. I love that fact. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to say it till I get slapped with a gag order. You are not a freaking news service. You're an entertainment service.
But you can't get slapped with a gag order.
Huh?
You can't get. I am so happy that we brought that to your attention those many months ago. This has been like one of the happiest moments. But
you know
go
what
ahead.
I feel like? Did you ever watch The Simpsons when they were making fun of Fox all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I feel like right now. I feel like Homer talking about that company Fox, or better yet, Married with Children when they got moved and they were making fun of Fox every time. Yep.
Well, we have to remember it's different, same umbrella, but different organization. So like the Fox News organization they're not registered as a news agency because
they're an entertainment industry.
Because of what they say, because they're entertainment industry. So like CNN, MSNBC, they're registered as news organizations and they're held to a higher journalistic standard. Fox can literally go on air and say things that are lies because
they're an entertainment industry. They're meant to entertain.
But go ahead and make your point, Wade. Go ahead and make your point, Wade.
So they did get some information that is interesting. So they did put out that the reason, and for once I'm going to agree with Facebook. So God help me, strike me dead. Facebook's parent company, Meta, Facebook, provided a statement to Fox Entertainment News that we have removed this group for repeatedly violating our policies around the Q word. I don't want to get you booted from Facebook by saying the whole word. So by
QAnon,
the Q word,
QAnon, you can say QAnon.
By QAnon, and that they are actively shutting down pages with admins tied to the QAnon group. Okay, I agree with that. I agree with that. That is a proactive safety measure. I'm okay with that. So for people to just say Facebook shut down that page and not have that tidbit, that is a different story completely. And I am really, really sad that Fox Entertainment News put that out before anybody else.
Yeah, that I did see from Fox too. So, but I think, yeah, that's interesting. However, they're going to find another place to go. So again, we're going back to the conversation around the Freedom Convoy that was being planned from California to DC. The Facebook group with the people who were supporting it was shut down. And it wasn't because of the Freedom Convoy, but it was because of the QAnon conspiracy theories that were happening within the group. So just wanted to clarify what we were talking about in case it got lost after the Fox News jokes.
Hey, Fox Entertainment News.
So let's go ahead to the comments, and then we're going to switch to the next topic, which is actually tied to this topic. But let's go ahead and go to the comments. So Amanda says, it's 2022. This is neo-Nazi shit. It's so old. Get with the program only about diversity. Joanna says, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing, Mel. He is bald, LOL. Lindsay said, what happened?
I'm bringing sexy back.
Wow.
Aerodynamic.
Lindsay says, I wonder if GoFundMe would seize funds from us if I started a bail fund they, them. Damn it, Wade, you're not a skinhead. Amanda says, put some respect on the Simpson way. They told the future before.
They have. There's actually people who track this and put it back to the episodes that say the Simpsons called this at this date, this time, this episode. And it's like years back. It's not like last week. It's years back they called this.
So we have a comment from the Smoke and Bacon app. Like I say all the time, Smoke and Bacon, their comments don't pop up, but I'm going to read this. This is from Las Vegas Luddite. We're going to move on to the next conversation afterwards. I really would like to debate this, but we are running out of time. So Las Vegas Luddite says, so we can't actually know that these people aren't plants, deliberately trying to salt the pond. We all know that racism and bigotry have become cash cows, blank checks for basically anything. So who are these people with swastikas? Are they plants or are they just dipshits? I'm going to say they're just dipshits. I don't want to dive into this too much because we're going to talk about what happened in Brooklyn. If you do pay attention to the rhetoric around neo-Nazis right now, you'll see that a lot of neo-Nazis, a lot of white supremacist groups are aligning themselves with the anti-vax movement as well. Again, I want to be very clear with this. The anti-vax movement, which I don't support, just throwing that out there, the anti-vax movement, the anti-mandate movement, is not a white supremacist organization. It does not have ties. However, the majority of neo-Nazis and white supremacists in the countries do align themselves with the anti-vax and the anti-mandates. So across the board, they are supporting, and they're supporting it loudly. So it wasn't shocking when we heard that there were neo-Nazis there. So essentially they're going out to supporting what they actually do support, but then they're bringing their other support of other things along with them. So just putting that there. Do you want to respond before we go to the next topic, Wade?
Nope. I'm waiting for a very specific topic.
Okay. We're not talking about the airline yet. We're talking about what happened in Brooklyn. Sorry, I knew that's what you're waiting for. We'll talk about it very briefly. So New York, the Freedom Convoy is growing, and many in New York are following in their footsteps. Now, back in November, there was a policy put in place that all New York city workers had to be fully vaccinated by this Friday in order for them to continue working. If they were not vaccinated, they would be fired. So at the moment, there's nearly 4,000 unvaccinated municipal employees in New York City. And again, the policy took effect November 1st, and they have until this Friday to be fully vaccinated. Right now, there's 4,000 different types of New York City workers, including, but not limited to, NYPD and the New York City Fire Department as well. If they're not vaccinated by this Friday, they are going to be fired. Now, the unvaccinated, the 4,000 people who did not support this mandate, took to the streets and essentially shut the Brooklyn Bridge down yesterday evening. They walked across the Brooklyn Bridge in solidarity, protesting the inevitable that's going to happen on Friday. And then there's other people outside of the Brooklyn Bridge who drove around in support, blaring their horns as well. Now, New York Mayor Eric Adams says that it's ultimately about safety. And the reason why this policy has been put in place by his predecessor was for the safety of New York City. So Wade, what are your thoughts about the protests that happened in Brooklyn last night?
Was Joe Gatto there? I wonder if he was riding the ferry past him going, "Suck it." No, I'm swearing. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, that was a funny joke. But my only question is did they allow emergency vehicles through when they needed to?
I mean, they were the emergency vehicles. It was pretty much cops and the fire department who were on the bridge, and then other municipality workers as well.
So I have no issues with it.
I have no issue with it either. It was a protest. So I do want to compare, right? They came, they shut down the bridge for a moment of time, they walked across the bridge, they got their message out, and they moved on. That is a protest. I just put it out there. What we're seeing:
kick, beat, shut down, destroy, burn, break into. I'm just making sure. I'm just covering all the bases. They didn't do any of that, right? And if there was an emergency vehicle that came through, they would have let it through, right? In which case, I am completely okay with this protest.
Like the majority, I know you're going back to the Black Lives Matter protest, which the one incident where they didn't allow the emergency vehicles. Remember, this was happening in multiple cities, yes. But again, in Canada, they're not allowing emergency vehicles through either. So just throwing that out there. But going back to what's happening in Brooklyn, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about the actual protests in Brooklyn? And what are your thoughts about the Freedom Convoy growing? Because this did come as a direct cause of the Freedom Convoy. They literally said that the Freedom Convoy gave them the idea to shut down the Brooklyn Bridge.
Do you remember there was an episode, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 300 episodes ago, where we talked about Congress. And you said that you wanted to get rid of the filibuster because whatever the people decide is what should be voted on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the people are deciding to protest against this, then the people are voting in that same statement.
It's still a minority.
All people? No. Is it the entire country?
It's a minority.
Not yet, but it is a group of people exercising their right.
Yes, it's a group of people exercising their right. However, it's a minority. The majority of Americans are for vaccine mandates.
I'm vaccinated, and I believe in people having their own rights.
I understand that, but if it would come down to a vote at the moment, public opinion at the moment is they're okay with vaccine mandates. So I think that's if it switches, that's what we can have now. It's what the public wants right now. The public wants.
We're gonna.
But it's not what the public. It's what the minority wants. Like I know they're making a lot of noise. They're making a lot of noise, right? But it's only 500 truckers. If we're going back to
it's 500 truckers. It's American truckers of an unknown amount, and it's Brooklyn Bridge right now with all the first responders. What's next?
It's a few hundred people, but that's what I'm saying. These not the majority.
Siloed events, though. They are all.
No. I agree. There are a group of people who don't believe in the mandate. But if you were to put it to a vote, right? If you had every single American citizen come out and vote right now about vaccine mandates, it's leaning towards being okay with vaccine mandates. It would be a majority.
Just saying right now. This is what the people are wanting. And
no, right now, wait, you got to stop saying that. This is what the minority
listen to me. Listen to me.
No. You're saying this is what the people want. If you were to put it in a nationwide vote, just because they're being louder doesn't make them the majority, Wade. If a vote were to happen, the majority would vote that a vaccine mandate is okay.
Hold on. Right now, you have these three groups that we're talking about that are feeding off each other. Do you remember when I said that a person is smart and people are ignorant? You get enough people together saying that the sky is purple, that sky is purple, and no matter what you do, you can't convince them otherwise. This is where the movement is heading towards. So you have this group of people that this is what they want. This is what the people want. And the more people that join them, it's going to snowball. That's what I'm trying to say.
But at the moment, you're saying at the moment, this is what the people want. At the moment, that's what the minority wants. If it grows
Still the
to a
people.
point where the majority of the country doesn't support vaccine mandates, then we'll deal with it at that time. But right now, you have a loud minority who doesn't support it. And I think that's very important because you're saying give the people what they want, and the majority of people are okay and want the vaccine mandates.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think these first responders on the Brooklyn Bridge don't understand their choice? They probably understand it better than most people.
Okay.
So if they're willing, with a full understanding, to not be vaccinated and still go in and help people, I think they should be allowed.
I don't. It's a policy that was put in place. You were given a choice. The majority of people are okay with this choice. The majority of municipal workers went and got vaccinated.
But did they get vaccinated because they thought it was the right thing to do, or because they thought they would lose their job?
Both. There's both. There's people who just did it like you because of your job, and there's people who support it. However, it is a small minority. And I'll even say this, on the Brooklyn Bridge, they interviewed a gentleman who said that he was vaccinated, but he supported people's right not to. At this point, I don't. But at this point, I don't.
Even vaccinated, I support people's rights to be vaccinated or not based off their educated choice.
I do not, because under the same token, if you would say that, then schools would have to drop all of their vaccine mandate because it's the parents' choice. And then we would see a rise in measles. We'll see a rise in smallpox. We'll see a rise in diseases that were eradicated because of the blessings. And this is me saying the word blessings, because of the blessings of vaccines.
We're already seeing it with the anti-vax culture.
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with the pandemic. That existed beforehand. This just exaggerated it.
It did. And that's what I'm saying. I don't support it. If we go back to Jacobson versus Massachusetts, I mean, for the past, 7 months, I've been quoting this court case. I want to quote more. I know more court cases. I want to quote more court cases. But it does give cities and states the rights to put out vaccine mandates. This is something that is very American.
I
totally vaccine mandate isn't new. There is nothing new about a vaccine mandate.
But no matter
it happened in schools,
what logic
it happened
or argument you have, you're not going to convince people to do it because it's what you want them to do. So if you can't convince them to do it because that's what you want them to do, what option do you have?
No. But here's the thing. You're going to put the policy in place. You're going to put the law in place, and then you give people a choice. If they say no, then they lose their job. I am okay with that. This is not something that the government magically made up. This is something that the United States has done to ensure the protection of the area as a whole, right? I'm saying area because if we talk about the Jacobson versus Massachusetts, it was protecting the people of Massachusetts against one person who didn't want to get vaccinated or a small minority who didn't want to get vaccinated, right? Mm-hmm. I am okay with limiting the rights of some in order to ensure that the greater population is able to function alive, healthy, and well, right?
You don't understand how viruses are passed.
I don't understand how viruses are passed.
Because it doesn't matter.
It does.
For it to be effective,
so here's the thing about the vaccine:
90% or some high number.
No. So here's the reason why I support the vaccine mandates. And again, I already know people are going to come in with their personal stories of, but I wasn't vaccinated and I got sick, but I was fine. I don't care about personal stories. If we're talking one-on-one, I do care about your personal story, but I'm talking about data and statistics when it comes to making laws. I love your personal stories. I want to be there for people and their personal stories. But when it comes to policy and law, what matters is data and statistics. The data being put out currently, the available data for the past several months have shown since the vaccine was first introduced that if you are vaccinated, you are less likely to get severely ill and you are less likely to die. Now, again, I want to prevent people from dying, but here's where it becomes a major issue. There's only one reason we go into lockdowns. One reason.
It's the ICU beds.
The ICU beds. If the majority of the population is vaccinated in a given area, the data shows this, then there's not a rush of people using the ICU beds, and it leaves places open.
Totally agree with
being vaccinated, having an entire population being vaccinated allows countries, cities, counties to stay open. It allows us to function like normal. Yes, there's some few things that are going to change. You may have to wear masks, you may do this, but it allows places to function. The best thing that we can do is not just say, screw all mandates, we're going to go back to normal and just watch people die. Because what's going to happen is it's going to affect people, not only people who have COVID, because hospitals are going to turn into COVID centers. So when the hospitals turn into COVID centers, because you guys didn't want to buy vaccine mandates, what's going to happen is your uncle's going to have a heart attack and there's no bed for him. Your brother's going to have a stroke and die because there's no bed for him. That woman who was so happy that she was pregnant and can't wait to give birth, all of a sudden there's a complication and there's no bed for her, and both the mother and child die. It's not just about COVID. It's not just about, it's bigger than that. And that is why I think it's okay with vaccine mandates. It's bigger than that. Now, if you don't want to get vaccinated, and I hate the term vaccine mandates too, because no one is forcing anyone to get vaccinated. There's no line where they're saying stick you or go to jail. What they're saying is, in order to keep the population safe, what we're doing is we're telling people that you have to be vaccinated in order to work for this company so we can keep this area safe. They're not forcing a vaccine on you. If they were forcing a vaccine on you, I would kind of be like, oh, I would still support it, but I would be kind of wary. They're literally giving you a choice. They're saying in order to work, you have to be vaccinated. You do not have to be vaccinated. We're never going to force this needle into your arm. It is still your choice. However, your choice has consequences. People are upset about the consequences. No one is taking your freedom away. I don't know where this whole freedom thing came from, because they're giving you a choice, but they're saying that your choice has consequences.
I believe the opposite.
Whether or not, you can choose whether or not you get vaccinated. You can choose, but your choice has consequences. If you cannot do what's best for us as a society, then you can't work in the society. Go find an online job.
So I believe in the opposite. I believe in take the labels off and let it sort itself out. And here's what I mean by that. If you show up at the hospital and you were unvaccinated and you need an ICU bed, sorry, buddy. You made this choice. You need to live with it. All right? Just like if I want to go stick a fork in a light socket, I should be able to. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but this is how we call the herd of the dumbest among us. So if we stop trying to keep the dumbest among us at the same level as the rest of us, maybe we'll actually move forward.
I am not a survival of the fittest type of person. I don't think anyone should be denied medical care. Especially with so much false information being put out. Again, I believe that your choices have consequences, being fired and whatnot, but I don't even care if you were the biggest anti-vaxxer in the world and you were going on the microphone every day. I still think
the pregnant lady that needs an ICU bed and an unvaccinated person, the pregnant lady's getting it. Sorry. You still get medical help, but you ain't going to get that ICU bed. Sorry.
But that's the thing. There's already people in the ICU beds. It's that the ICU beds are taken up. They're full. It's not like, oh, who we're going to choose. It's Jesus Christ. There's no beds for anyone else to come in. So let's go ahead and go to the comments before I go on another passionate rant. Amanda says, Ken's company had to be vaccinated by December 18th or they were losing their jobs. They're one of the biggest security guard firms in New York City. Yep. Okay, it's back. I can live again. Perfect. Amanda says, I had to restart mine too. Did everyone's internet shut down? Oh man, the drones are really going after people today. So Lindsay says, oh my God, stop it, Wade.
Which one? which argument?
Which argument? At this point, we went on so many. Lindsay says they protested and did so awesomely, but Freedom Convoy is not a protest, it's a political movement. I completely agree with what Lindsay's saying. I think it's past the point of a protest. It's definitely a political movement and an occupation. Amanda says, I'm all for letting people protest, but people have strong opinions on vaccine mandates. Like, this is the first time mandates have ever happened. It's been a thing since America was created. Yep, I think
I would disagree with that. Vaccines only came around in the late or the mid 1900s. America's been here since 1776. All right.
You know what I mean. I think we know what Amanda meant. Since the introduction of vaccines, America has been okay with vaccines and vaccine mandates. This is the first time
we're talking about 60 to 80 years is what we're talking about.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna let you have that. Not gonna.
So.
Lindsay says the people aren't the ones who are on fire yet, so essentially they're still pro-mandate because it's not affecting them directly yet. Amanda says, I mean, Mel is right because there are more people that are for vaccine as opposed to being against vaccines. Just ask when the last time we had an outbreak of polio was. LOL. Exactly. Amanda says, and they can protest, sure, but there is a mandate. You have a choice to either get the vaccine or get another job that you can do without the vaccine. All actions have consequences. Losing your job due to not getting a vaccine is the consequences of your chosen action. Yep, I would
agree with that. Very rarely will you hear me say I agree with Amanda, but I agree with Amanda there. If you choose not to do it, protest all you want. You just lose your job.
You lose your job. And it's not saying that you cannot work because there are plenty of jobs you can still get. There are plenty of online jobs. There actually are a fair amount of companies that don't care whether you're vaccinated or not.
The only group of people that I would disagree with that statement on is first responders, because they know better than anybody else what they're risking. And they're still willing to save you and risk their life by not having a mandate. I would say that is the only group of people, because there are not a lot of people that are willing to run into a burning building and save your cat or your baby. Do you give a fuck if they're vaccinated at that point, if your building's on fire?
I disagree. I think more importantly they should, because
I'm just saying, look, if the building's on fire and the firefighter shows up, I'm not going to ask him, are you vaccinated? Do you have a mask on? No? Okay, can you get me a different firefighter?
So I am happy to know that New York City is making firefighters and police officers get vaccinated, because again, they're out there more than everyone else, and they can end up becoming patient zero and causing a bigger outbreak. Because even when we are in lockdown, if we go into lockdown again, they're still out there, and they're the ones that are gonna be out there going into buildings and communicating with people. They have the ability to spread things rapidly. Lindsay says, these folks are given time to prepare for this deadline for getting a vaccine or not. This means that if they chose not to vaccinate themselves, they had ample time to find another job in preparation for being let go from their choice of not being vaccinated. I agree with Lindsay there too. They had, it wasn't like something happened overnight or a month. They were given months.
I would agree with that statement. Mostly because I don't want to sleep on the couch tonight, but I would agree with that statement.
Joanna says, no one should be denied medical care. No one. I completely agree. I just can't see myself. Like I was saying to Wade, live in front of the hundreds of people watching. I don't care. You could have been the biggest anti-vaxxer on the mic telling everyone not to get vaccinated. If you ended up in the hospital with COVID, I don't think anyone should deny you medical care.
Look, I think if you shoot yourself in the foot, you should hobble around for the rest of life because you're a dumbass. All right.
I'm going to disagree. Amanda says, first responders should know the importance of vaccine as someone who supports science. If they don't, they should lose their jobs on that thought alone. But again, not all first responders know science. Like for instance, firefighters. Some of them may. I had an employee, college graduate, French literature, it's blah, 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 blah. Really intelligent guy, really great employee. Started working for my fitness company. And he was like, I just went to college to make my mom happy. Really smart guy, scholarship and everything. He ended up taking his college degree and becoming a firefighter. So I'm not saying all firefighters don't know about science, but tangent.
And we're not saying, please don't get me wrong. I support all first responders, firefighters, all that. We are not saying that they are dumb in any means whatsoever. Matter of fact, they're extremely smart and brave at what they do. But that doesn't mean they understand the actual science of something.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. Let's go to the comments from Smoke and Bacon. Las Vegas Luddite says, the science seems to be changing almost daily. Yes, that's something else. That is hard to deal with. But again, this is something that's very new. So Las Vegas Led also continues and says, looks like we are rapidly approaching a point where COVID will be treated along the same lines as the flu. Shots are available, but not required. I think we can get to that point. I just don't think we're there yet. I think maybe in the next, so I agree with Las Vegas Led. I think in the next year, I think by the end of the year, things will work itself out where we'll be able to handle COVID like the flu. I just don't think we're there yet. So let's see. Last comment from Smoke and Bacon. Again, Smoke and Bacon is an app that we broadcast on, but they're the app where we can't get the comments on the screen. So last comment from there before we switch topics. Las Vegas Led says, Mel has stolen the world's right in my wife's mouth. My wife believes that unvaxxed and pull up a cot under a tarp in the alley when they get sick. Like I said, I don't think anyone should be denied medical care, but I do think you got to deal with the consequences of your actions, of losing your job, etc.
I'm not saying deny medical care. I'm just saying you ain't at the top of the list.
So let's go to one more comment because Kenny chimed in. Kenny says, my only comment on the first responders is that what if we're the other way around and you are immunocompromised and your paramedic came in with COVID but was asymptomatic, then your life would be at risk. I think that's a very good point. I definitely
bring that back up.
Yep.
My only comment as a grocery store shopper is that what if it was the other way around and you were immunocompromised and shopping for your groceries with the individual checking you out, touching everything, and they were asymptomatic and your life would be at risk?
Yeah, I agree. I think grocery stores should have vaccine mandates in place.
I'm just saying that logic doesn't fly because here's
the thing. So here's the thing. I think with what Kenny's saying, and I'm gonna put this up even though it blocks our face. So I think with this statement here is if you are immunocompromised, right? You may not go to the grocery store right now because you know you're at risk for COVID. However, if you're having a medical emergency, you're going to call a first responder to help you. And you're going to assume that they are protected because they know that they're going to come up against people like you. So I do agree with
that doesn't apply either because vaccine doesn't prevent anybody from passing it. It just makes it like the flu. So that first responder could be vaccinated. He could still have it and be asymptomatic, and you can still get the same result. Remember, vaccines don't stop anything.
So I'm going to say this. The vaccine doesn't stop it in that sense, but it stops it from spreading around the community as well.
No, it doesn't. It does not.
Yes, it does.
It does not stop it from spreading. It makes the symptoms less so that you don't end up dying or ending up in the ICU. We've had this conversation a million times. Just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't pass it to somebody else, whether they're vaccinated or not vaccinated.
So here's the thing, right? You have the community, right? Community starts here. No one's vaccinated. COVID. With the data that's coming out, we are seeing that if a community has less people vaccinated, you see more people getting COVID. You're seeing more people in the hospital. You're seeing more people dying. So in that sense, I'm saying
you're twisting this now because you and I both know and the world knows that a vaccine does not stop you from passing it.
I'm not twisting it. I'm literally stating the data. The main reason for the vaccine, I told you, the main reason for the vaccine is to stop the hospital buildup. That is the main reason.
It's to stop the hospital buildup. Yes, it doesn't stop transmitting it. It doesn't stop transmitting it from person to person.
So what I'm going to say is with the communities that have higher vaccination rates, you're seeing less COVID spread in the areas.
Well, yeah, because everybody's only getting the flu. Your logic doesn't apply, Mel. I got you on this one. You got to admit.
It does. It does apply.
No, it doesn't. You're giggling. Look at you. You're smiling. It doesn't apply.
No, but I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But when the community, right? When the community.
Then everybody has the flu. You still pass it to each other, though.
It's less likely to be passed around when everyone is vaccinated.
Less likely to put you in the hospital, in the ICU.
It's also less likely to put you in the hospital, and it's less likely to kill you. But it's also less likely. So here's the thing, right?
Because if that was the case, flu vaccines would prevent passing the flu to everybody. It doesn't.
So the thing about the flu is the flu is always a gamble. The flu is always a gamble because scientists have to be like, Which flu is coming this year? We're going to guess and we're going to put it out there.
I'm going to send you a shovel because you're digging this hole deep, Mel. You're digging it.
I'm not digging the hole deep. I'm not digging the hole deep. I'm saying when communities are vaccinated, like when a large percentage of
their response to the virus smaller and safer, but it doesn't prevent passing it.
It does. When you have a large percentage of the population vaccinated, which it's very rare.
Vaccines don't stop passing it from person to person. They stop the worst issues with it.
It does. Wade, I want you to take a step back. If you're in a town, if you're in a city, and the population is about 80% vaccinated, it is stopping the spread also.
It's reducing the symptoms for the people who catch it, but it is not stopping the spread. If that was the case,
doing the same thing, but you have to reach a high enough level of vaccination. If that was the case, all
vaccinated people would not have to go into quarantine when they catch it, because you can't pass it with a vaccine, right?
You still can when you have a low percentage of people vaccinated.
So it doesn't matter if you have a low percentage or a high percentage.
Yes, it does.
If me and you are vaccinated in a room and I have COVID, I can give it to you just as easy. But your response is going to be less than a person who's unvaccinated. That's where those numbers are coming from. I agree with you.
Read the comments. I'm going to read the comments.
I can't see the comments. Are you reading the comments?
Here, I forgot you can't pull them up. Is everyone hitting on me as I pull this up? So go ahead and read that one.
It says, Joanna says, yep, the vaccinated can pass it to the other. Let's not use mono as an example. You can have mono and be asymptomatic, but they need to be quarantined for X amount of time. You can have mono and be asymptomatic, but the person who has mono needs to be quarantined for X amount of time. Okay, it took me a minute to figure that one out. Happened to my kid 3 years ago. Mel, it only makes symptoms less severe. No, Mel, that's false.
Excuse me. By Ashke Sayal, MD. People who are vaccinated against COVID-19 are less likely to spread the virus even if they become infected. A new study finds, adding to the growing body of evidence that vaccines can reduce transmissions of the Delta variant. I'm going to...
You still pass it.
It reduces it. There's still a possibility, but it reduces it. The same way that if you were wearing a mask and I am wearing a mask, if we're both wearing a mask, it reduces it. The main reason for the vaccine is to stop the buildup in the hospitals. However, there are multiple studies that show that you are less likely, even if you are sick, if you are vaccinated, you are less likely to infect other people. Again, that is not the big push for the vaccine, and it's not perfect. It is not perfect as all, but you reduce the rate that you spread it when you are vaccinated. That's what the studies are showing. Do you want me to pull up more studies?
So I can give you one right here. I can give you another one right here that says uninfected people cannot transmit. Therefore, the vaccines are effective at preventing transmission. No shit. If you're not infected, you can't transmit it.
I mean, that's
about the dumbest, smartest statement I've ever heard.
That is a dumb statement, Wade.
Okay? That is a dumbass statement, but I can bring up statements too. The point of the matter is it doesn't stop the transmission.
I did not say it stopped.
But it doesn't stop it.
It reduces transmission. If I am vaccinated and Sally Joe over here is not vaccinated and we both have COVID, you are more likely to get COVID from Sally Joe Then Mel, it reduces the risk. It doesn't completely stop it, but you are less likely to get COVID from me. You are more likely.
Vaccines aren't preventing onward transmission by reducing the viral load or amount of SARS-CoV-2 in your body. So if it's not reducing it and you can still pass it on,
you can still pass it. It's reducing it. It is reducing it.
So it's irrelevant if you're vaccinated or you're not. The only issue is if you're unvaccinated, you take up an ICU bed and you get sick.
No, that is the main reason. It's the main reason. So if I am vaccinated,
so to go back to
Bob is vaccinated, if John is vaccinated, if you're vaccinated, we're all vaccinated, right? And someone's over there, and we all have COVID. You are less likely to get it from us.
Let's go back to the original comment. If I'm immunocompromised and I have someone who is vaccinated show up or someone who isn't vaccinated, I have the same equal chance of being infected.
You do not have the same equal chance, though, because it reduces.
It does not reduce.
Yes, it does. I just read the study.
I'm looking at the Mayo Clinic. Are you arguing with the Mayo Clinic?
Oh, my gosh. I am looking at the studies right now.
Are you looking at the Mayo Clinic?
I'm not on the Mayo Clinic.
That's what I'm saying. All right. There are so many different variations of this. And who do you believe?
Well, I was going to say the CDC, but I don't believe them anymore. But that's where
they're a political body, okay? They are bought and sold on a daily basis.
What I'm saying is, I am agreeing with you. It does not stop the spread. But if you have a group of people who are vaccinated, it reduces the spread. There is a difference between the word stop and reduces.
But in the original statement, we were talking about immunocompromised person.
Yes. And if I'm immunocompromised,
it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not, you can still pass it. Would you agree with that statement?
If I'm immunocompromised and I have to deal with someone who's 80% likely to give me COVID and someone who is 50% likely to give me COVID, I'm going to choose the 50% every time. It's reduced. It's not stopped. I could still.
I'm going to go back to my original statement. The building's on fire. Are you going to ask the firefighter if he's vaccinated or not?
Like I said, in that instance, I think he should have been fired before. But it doesn't matter. We were talking about a very specific example that Kenny brought up.
A very specific example, an immunocompromised person who can be affected by both vaccinated and unvaccinated people.
And I'm saying percentage-wise, if I have to deal with someone, if I'm immunocompromised.
But you don't have that choice when you call 911.
If I'm immunocompromised and there's someone who's not vaccinated who's going to give me an 80% chance of giving me COVID, and there's someone who's vaccinated who has a 50% chance of giving me COVID, I'm going to always choose a lower percentage.
But when the person shows up and you ask them, which one
you're not going to ask them. You're not going to ask them. No one's asking because they're already fired.
So we are not going to get past this tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the comments and then we're gonna move on.
Okay.
Roger says vaccines do not stop the spread, just the effect.
I think that's like the sixth person to agree.
Kenny says the more people vaccinated equals the less people getting sick, less people spreading it. Lindsay says, but it doesn't stop or eradicate the spread altogether. I completely agree with that. It doesn't stop or eradicate the spread, but it reduces. Amanda says, boom, point for Mel. Lindsay says, oh my God, Wade's face with Joanna's comments. Lindsay says it reduces, but does not entirely stop the spread. That's the point.
No. It doesn't stop the spread is my point.
And I agree with you. Wade, you're fighting me when I'm telling you I agree with you.
And you're fighting me in the fact that you won't admit that whether you're vaccinated or not, you still have the same chance of passing it.
No, you don't.
So an immunocompromised person, yes, you do.
Going to the next comment, Roger says, we are seeing record numbers of infection, but with 95% of vaccinated, very reduced effects. Maybe it's different in the United States.
Yeah, because human bodies are different here than they are in Australia.
Lindsay says, y'all know why I have popcorn on Tuesday nights. Kenny says also Wade, the firefighter would be wearing a respirator, so it's all good.
Okay, stop there. Stop there. If he's wearing a respirator, doesn't matter if he's vaccinated.
Yes.
No.
Because firefighters are not always wearing a respirator. They also live together.
They always wear a respirator to fire.
Wade, you do know that firefighters do a lot more than just
they do paramedic stuff. Yes. So if a respirator is good enough to stop it for that transmission because of the filters, then if they're not vaccinated, wear a fucking respirator. Problem solved. I would rather have a firefighter wearing respirator. I would rather have 100 firefighters wearing respirators helping people than having 10 vaccinated firefighters that don't.
I would rather have a fire station stay open because everyone got vaccinated than a fire station shut down because one firefighter brought in COVID and they weren't vaccinated and now they're all on ventilators.
That's irrelevant because they could all be vaccinated and still get sick. By the CDC, all of them have to quarantine. That logic doesn't hold water.
Wade, it does hold water.
No, it doesn't.
If you're going back to the other argument that we agreed on, because we can't keep having this argument, we're not going to agree. If a firefighter brings into the firehouse because they all live together and they all get sick, they're more likely to go to the hospital. They're more likely to die. I said they're all on ventilators. I literally said they're all on ventilators.
Doesn't matter. You can still be vaccinated and be on a ventilator. My point is the transmission still happens.
Amanda says Mel's going to jump through the computer screen to strangle Wade. Yes, I am. They save kittens from tree, Wade. Even kittens get COVID vaccines. Joanna says I need a drink tonight.
Hey, Joanna.
Lindsay says
Angel's Envy works really, really well. I'm just saying. It's out of Kentucky.
Lindsay says you need popcorn, girl. Amanda says imagine a firehouse all in quarantine and 10 alarm fire going off.
So that has actually happened here in Richmond. A firefighter contracted it. They shut down the entire firehouse, and there were protocols for that. That's when the other firehouses in the area back them up.
Lindsay says y'all are going to agree to disagree. Yes, we're going to agree to disagree, and we're going to move on. Very quickly, we're going to talk about the other topic. Kenny says, oh, snap, I didn't mean to start a fire. Hey, Wade, call your unvaccinated firefighters.
I will. And all of them have beer bellies, too. Don't you ladies think that they're all fucking ripped because they're not.
So I will say this. Usually we have someone else on the show who will be like, let's move on. Not tonight. So Wade and I had the opportunity to argue. So Las Vegas Ledi says, what's getting lost in all of this is the widely accepted fact that vaccines do not prevent catching or spreading the virus. Las Vegas Ledi says, God damn it, Wade, read the comments. Las Vegas Ledi also says, I'm still unclear how much immunity is a result from piety, how much tithes is required for a lifetime immunity. I saw the direction it was going, and I just couldn't read it. Las Vegas Ledi says the respirators won't completely stop the virus. Bodies shed virus. That's why we wash our hands and wipe down surfaces. A respirator is a hole in the rubber. Let's see. So let's go ahead and move on to this last topic tonight. I try to end the night on something that's not as controversial, but who will see. Budget airlines are popular now. People want to save money and sit in seats where they'll probably break. The two biggest budget airlines have decided to merge into one company. So Spirit Airline and Frontier are going to merge into one company. They're saying that they will save $1 billion annually. They're also saying that they can do this without any layoffs. And not only are they saying without any layoffs, they're saying they'll be able to add 10,000 direct jobs by 2026 because of the merger. Thoughts, Wade?
When I first read this, Mel, would you put up my vision of this?
I am. I'm trying to get the screen right.
So if you've ever seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they're riding the cargo plane with the chickens and there's no pilot and everything's falling apart, this is my vision of two budget airlines coming together. I
agree. I think we're heading towards more and more monopolies. I think it's taken away. I think the first couple of years is going to be good, but somewhere around year 4 or 5 it's going to start sinking.
When you get rid of competition, you get rid of cost. You get rid of cost efficiency and effectiveness.
Yep. So I think we're in a situation where we're seeing way too many companies merging from too big of industries. You have the cell phone companies, you have these airlines merging, and it's just going to be, it sounds good in the beginning, but it's just going to be worse for us later on. So I do think this is going to be a bad thing in the next couple of years. Any other last comments about the budget airlines?
I'm looking to see if I'm still blocked on Facebook.
So the merger is approved by Frontier completely. They still have to wait for shareholders from Spirit. However, one of the biggest things that they're going to have to deal with is regulatory issues and the Biden administration. We do know that the Biden administration is not a big fan of mergers at the moment. They did shut down the domestic alliance ship between America Airlines and JetBlue. The Justice Department sued them when they tried to form this domestic alliance ship. So we'll see if they try and sue to see if they can do this merger. So they still have a long way to go before they can actually merge. They're saying that they plan to merge in a couple of months. But again, we'll wait and see what the Biden administration has to say about this. Wade, what are your thoughts about the Biden administration and them not being too enthused to allow the companies to merge?
I have to, oh God, this is going to hurt. I have to agree with them. And here's why. And I'm going to quote one of my favorite comedians, Jeff Foxworthy.
Oh, God.
When you mix raw sewage with pond water, you're not getting Avion. So if you take the two bottom of the barrel airlines, the cheapest that they could possibly be, and merge them, I'm wondering how much duct tape is going to be used to hold the engines together.
Perfect.
I mean, let's be honest here, okay? To be that cheap, they're cutting corners somewhere.
I'm sorry. I also forgot to list another benefit. They're saying that by merging, they'll also be able to offer the consumer lower prices.
That's because they're going to acquire planes already held together with duct tape, so they don't have to add duct tape, which means they don't have to purchase more duct tape. See how that works?
Let's go to the comments, then we're going to call it a night. Amanda says, Flying Spirit is like a New York transit bus, hoping to get to the destination on time. Lindsay says, oh, it's utter horseshit, no layoffs. Yeah. Joanna says they will also have a standing section, which some of the airlines already tried to do.
Can you imagine that? Like being on the bus, you got to stand up on the airline, you got a hoop and a rail. Just during turbulence, you're holding on to this bitch, and you end up like Superman at one point. You're just getting flopped to top and bottom.
Joanna's laughing. Amanda says it's like 75 cents to fly anywhere now. What are the flights going to be free? They're going to have to pay you to get on the airline.
Right? You're going to have to pay me to get on two budget airlines that have merged.
Roger says, are they reducing the safety rules by the Civil Airline Safety Authority? Surely they'll still need to comply. I mean, it's America. I think it's America. American businesses like to cut corners any way that they can. Of course, they're still going to have to comply, but they're going to push the boundaries as much as they can. You've never flown Frontier or Spirit because that is something that is truly, truly an American experience.
Again,
and most people
watch Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, when they're in the cargo plane and Short Round comes running out screaming, no more parachutes, Dr. Jones. That's what your experience is going to be like.
So I want to go to Joanna's comment, charging $5 for seatbelts. And if they could, they would. Right now, for a Spirit airline, I could probably get a ticket round trip somewhere for like $71. I can't bring anything. Can't bring bags. Probably gonna sit in a window seat with no window, which has happened to me one of the times I took Spirit. I've flown almost every airline in the United States. Spirit is special.
They are definitely, and this is not politically correct, but it's going to be accurate. They are definitely the short bus of the airlines.
And we're going to end on that note. Actually, I'm going
Hold
to
on, no.
read.
We aren't ending on that. Hold on. Because Roger makes a valid point. Sydney, right?
So let's see. So Amanda says you get a backpack, Mel. LOL. It's not even a backpack anymore. It used to be a backpack. Now it's like a fanny pack. I don't think we have anyone watching in England. Sometimes I have to be careful what I say because fanny pack is not a fanny pack. Fanny is not a fanny.
No, fanny is not a fanny. Just like a cigarette is not a cigarette.
It's not. So, yeah.
So I can go from right now. I can go from Richmond to Australia for $70.
How?
According to the Spirit website, I can go from Richmond to Australia for $70.
Spirit doesn't fly to Australia, Wade.
Yeah, I know. Explain to me how that works.
I'm going to read these last couple of comments because Spirit doesn't fly to Australia. So Las Vegas Ledi says, don't the feds also have to approve the merger? They do. So that's really what we're waiting on. And why it's going to take so long for the merger. We'll see if they approve it. And then Las Vegas Ledi says all those consolidated jobs. Yep.
All right, let's go a little closer to home. Richmond to Virginia to Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, that's like a $40 one way.
$27. You tell me that $27 pays for the fucking fuel for that airplane.
Well, it's the small planes.
Oh yeah, it better be. I mean, you got people out there on the tarmac spinning the fucking engines, winding the rubber bands. Don't hit a fucking fly. You'll flip this bitch. I mean.
So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Power Hour panel. We come live every single Tuesday evening to bring you guys current events and let you know what's happening across the globe and right here in this great nation as well. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Have a great day, everybody.
Fucking flip the plane. Fuck.